if I shut my eyes and think about ATM and FI, the first thing that's to me that, you know, you come to realize they're the same thing. They're not, but they're very, very similar. The difference is that if I'm working with you in ATM, there's this gap. You know, there's this space between us that I traverse with my voice. Whereas in FI, the gap is much smaller, and the space is often traversed, if you don't mind, I'm going to touch your knee, is because I actually, you know, you can see the space is lessened. But the conversation is still the same. Now, we'll talk a lot about that, and the focus is not on FI in this first year and a bit. The focus is on awareness through movement and kind of really feeling competent with that relationship, the voice-based relationship. However, what we've learned over the years is if we leave all of the FI till to the second half, when it is the focus, it sort of freaks you out. So we start introducing these ideas so that the blurriness between FI and ATM is, there is more blurriness. And if you have any kind of, well, there's more time to develop the ability to communicate through touch, with touch. Okay, is that clear enough in a vague way? As one of my colleagues says, I could be more vague. It's possible, I can be more vague. So do you mind if you're my demonstration person? Okay. So could you lie on your side, whichever side you like. And the way we continue to just quietly explore these ideas, and this is something, you know, that we've been playing with a lot over the years. What's the first kind of skill in establishing that two people can be a system? Where you don't go immediately into directiveness or curative or therapeutic or judgment or anything, and you simply stay in sensing. So this is what we mean by going along for the ride. So in order for Nina to feel comfortable, I would like just another couple of pads under her head. Now, what led me to come to that conclusion? Yeah, one more. What did I see? So as I'm talking and I'm observing Nina, so already the system, if you want the towel on your face, that's nicer. Maybe it's not. I'm being a bit judgmental and dictatorial there, but personally, just try that and let's have a look. So that's a little bit high now for her. So one pad, can you take one pad away? I'm just being so bossy. So you're thinking, what's she looking at? Why is she making these funny distinctions? Okay, so what did I see that led me to be slightly bossy like that? I looked at this kind of alignment thing. Now I'm going to move behind Nina because she's looking at me. And this is not a social interaction now. So I'm going to come behind and then I can really see her without her orienting to me. So what I saw when she had just the towel was the alignment. If I'm thinking that I want her to be in an alignment that is somewhat functional, i.e. my head is somewhat aligned with my trunk, is somewhat aligned with my legs and with my shoulders, that is a roughly symmetrical position, then I don't want her head like this, which is how she was. Right? So she was tipped. She had a side bending in her neck in lying. Does that make sense? So I have just added, she has added a pad that brought her to, two pads took her here. So then that's this way, right? And that's not a symmetrical-ish position for her. And then of course she's got her own views about what's comfortable. And so this is, can you see how the system's interacting here? I've made some suggestions based on what I see in terms of alignment. She clearly didn't, you know, I made too many. She clearly didn't like it. I looked at the feedback on her face. We adjusted, and there's been this negotiation, feed forward, feedback. So feed forward is me being directive, saying put a pad under your head. That's feed forward, putting something into the system. Her feedback was la, la, la. And there wasn't particularly verbal. She wants to be verbal now. You can't see yourself. This one and your towel. Yeah. To me, what felt okay to you? Any, yeah. So she finds comfort in any of them, which is fine. That's great. She can be comfortable like this, she can be comfortable like this, and she can be comfortable like this. And some people can and some people can't. It's no big deal. It's just how it is. It's like one of my friends, she has to travel with her own pillow. She cannot sleep on any other pillow. So she has this manky pillow that she squashes into her suitcase, which to me looks manky. You know, it's like Linus in his dirty old blanket. And I go, you know, what is it about that pillow? Because it's just there. But she's learned how to find comfort, and that's what makes traveling comfortable for her. So kudos to her. You know, it's not a big deal. You could say, oh, from a Feldenkrais point of view, she should be adaptable. She should be able to sleep on this pillow or this pillow or this pillow and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, it's no should about it. That's her. She can adapt to the mattress. She just wants her pillow. Yeah. So Nina has accommodated my whims. What I'm interested in is this kind of alignment, just because in my experience, we're going to do a rotation thing. And rotation, as Helen pointed out, is around an axis. So in this position, you were rotating around this axis, right? When you were doing the rolling thing, you're rotating around an axis that goes straight down the middle of you, if you can imagine. It's a bit gory. You know, you're a shish kebab, and there's something going straight down through the top of your head, which is why Zoran paid a lot of attention to you kind of having an experience of the top of your head, and it goes straight down. It's somewhat your spine. It is loosely your spine, right? And so when you were doing that first rolling backwards, let's say roughly, now it's not actually true, you're rotating, your axis is more towards the floor. But if Nina starts to roll back a little bit and forward a little and go forward a little bit, and I'm simply watching what she does. So can you see, for her, I wanted her to start in somewhat of a vertical alignment. Because if she was like this, when she rolled, then there's something happening. Her neck isn't going to roll in the same kind of axis as her trunk because they're not congruent. Does that make sense? So I'm looking at her alignment. Now, I wasn't too fussed about her legs being asymmetrical. Sometimes we'll put a roller or something between the knees or, you know, whatever. But in this exercise, firstly, I looked at her alignment because the function that I've got in mind is rolling. I've got this idea of rolling around, and I want to start with that kind of configuration. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm looking at for this exercise, yeah, for side lying. And side lying is a really good position to work in because, and we'll talk a lot more about this, as a position, what it affords you, that word that we're using, what it offers you is a lot more degrees of freedom, because you can fall from, you know, it's easy. It's an easy movement, easy position to fall from. You can fall back or you can fall forward. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just watching, and I haven't given any instructions to Nina about how to roll. Remember, there's over 1,000. That's going to be the in segment thing. Discover the first 500. No, it's not. That's a lie. It's a total lie. We're not going to do that. So, yeah, yeah. You can start. Just wait. Absolutely. Exactly. That side lying is more unstable than lying on your back or lying on your front. So that, you know, sometimes I have a joke with people and say, are you more stable on your back or on your front? Actually, people feel it differently. It's just a joke. You don't have to answer it. Okay, so let's just say, so Nina, just roll back a little bit and roll forward a little bit. So I haven't told her anything about what to roll. She's just rolling. So I'm seeing how what rolls. Now, but just stop. And I could have looked before, and you can play this game about, can I get inside your skin? Can I predict how you're going to roll or what's going to roll first? Now, I would have predicted that she'd roll back before she'd roll forward. I didn't tell her to roll back. I just said roll. She immediately rolled back, and you can see that she's organized to roll back, partly because I'm here and she's visual and she wants to see me. She's social. She wants to orient to me. Bless you. You'll stop because I'm not, you know, particularly interesting. So her system already is kind of giving me these signs. Now, other people might not do that. You might look at them and go, oh, their instability is going to be more forward. It's not that Nina can't go forward, she can, but she was organised that I would predict that her first choice would be backwards. Then you could play the game, predict what rolls more easily. So I've got lots of choices about what could roll. You know, her knee could go that way, her pelvis could go that way. What I asked you to do when I taught the rolling lesson was your middle, and that for you, for most of you, was like, what are you talking about? Like the first response from almost all of you was, I could see, was, I don't know what you're talking about. So you tried lots of other things. Which is why I did it. It's not me being, it's being purposefully obtuse. Or the shoulder could come back more, or the head, or the eyes, or she could roll, en masse, so like a log. So a log doesn't have any bits, does it? It's just a log. It's just one piece. And in physio, we call that log roll, and we teach people, we used to teach, you're physio, yeah? Do you still teach people to log roll if they've had spinal surgery? Yeah. So, there's a purpose for log rolling, which is undifferentiated, where the whole of you rolls because you don't want anything to move because you've just had some person come in and put a whole lot of machinery in your spine so it doesn't move. Anyway, so we don't have an opinion here about differentiated rolling, i.e. different parts rolling, versus undifferentiated, i.e. everything's the same. We're just seeing what she does. And I could predict, what do I predict? What do I think rolls more easily in Nina? Do it again, just roll. And go back. So for some reason, I'm thinking her pelvis rolls slightly more easily. Now, what did I see? You could say, is this intuition? What did I observe? What did my experience? Why did I predict that? Maybe because it's already slightly backward. Her shoulder's always, she's already adjusting her sideline position, actually. So, the prediction game is fraught because these nasty students that we work with change. And just when we think we've got them sorted, the buggers change, and you go, I have to rethink this, I have to resense this, I have to refeel this situation. So again, Feldenkrais practitioners, you keep extremely nimble in your brain, in your body, because you've got to be ready for these creatures to learn. So frustrating. You're a control freak. It's very frustrating because now I have to rethink things. Nina, what are you doing to me? No, see, I'm making a joke of it, but it's actually beautiful, right? She's finding comfort or whatever. Okay, roll again. Now she's listening to me as well. So this is also influencing the system. Do you see this system's thinking? Anything that I do is going to influence her system because we are now one system, and what she does has to influence my system. I have to readjust my thinking in response to her. You see the dance? Right, and go back again. And you can see where her thinking and her sensing moves. There's a bit of shoulder and then the pelvis and then the pelvis and the shoulder, and there's this kind of interplay. And go again. Good, and then back again. Now, if I'm going along for the ride, I'm going to pick a place for my hand to rest as the passenger, and I'm going to go along for the ride. I'm not a backseat driver. I'm a passenger. So that means, I'm not telling the driver what to do. I'm not saying, I really think you should go left here. I'm not saying you're going too fast. I'm just a passenger, right? And you know the perfect passenger that just zips it, right? You know how annoying it is when you've got a backseat driver, unless you ask for it. So that's the point here. If I put my hand here, for example, and Nina just roll backwards and forwards a few times. If Nina wants some direction, now here's where I need to shut up because I wasn't. I got to hear, and did you see that? I do it again. I'll show you what there. And what she may or may not have felt is because I was busy talking, I stopped moving with her and I stopped her, right? So then I became a backseat driver because I said, I don't want you to go here. That's what she would have felt. And that's not what I meant, but I was distracted and I wasn't paying attention to her system and my system, right? I wasn't free to go with her, okay? So I need to shut up and I need to pay attention to her, not you. You don't have to go so far. I'm going to give her that just because if it's just harder to organise. And it's not sustainable because you're going to do this many times, right? And then I can change my position. She can feel, well, I don't want her to go any further now because it's not going to be sustainable. And I'm going to adjust my position because I feel like I couldn't track with her as well. And then I can come up to another point. Now you can see another reason, we work on tables because it makes it easier for me to adjust. So on the floor, I have to think a lot more, sense a lot more about how I'm going to adjust so that my touch can feel unobtrusive and I can truly be a quiet passenger, right? And where do I go in myself? But that is just as important as where my hand goes and where my body goes. So if I go into backseat passenger thinking, she'll feel it, whether I think I'm enacting it or not. So if I'm busy thinking about myself, so let's say, Lena, go ahead, and I'm so into myself and I'm not paying any attention to her, she'll feel it at some level. She'll sense it at some level. So it's how do I divide my attention now between my body and her body? Right? So it's not just inclusive attention for me, because if all of my attention's here, I'm just a narcissist, which is fine. I can do that. My attention is not all on her because then I'm a masochist, you know, in a way, like I'm, you know, not masochist, that's not the right word. I'm, you know, I'm the burnt chop. I'm only thinking about her and I'm compromising myself. So how do I have my attention that's inclusive so that I'm attending to her and I'm attending to me in equal measure, like we are equal partners in this system. That's the kind of key. And it's not to say that sometimes, you know, I won't have a slight more foregrounding of something, paying attention to her breathing, but in the background, I've got to pay attention to my breathing. And, you know, it's always that two-way thing. So you can see why it's so demanding, right? I mean, I'm not to say this happens in ATM, but it happens in a sort of in a more spacious way. Okay, so that's clarifying a little bit more what we mean by going along for the ride. So you work in pairs this time, just you don't have to observe, and you'll pick maybe 4 spots that are interesting to you where your hand can land and be a passenger. And as a, you know, there's sort of, you start to learn, you know, what kind of key parts are, but we're not going to tell you these are key points of control or something. That's other disciplines that do that. You'll learn what might be useful to Nina. And of course, you don't go to the place where you think she doesn't know first, because why would you point out something to somebody what they don't know first? Like how to win friends and influence people? No. Go to a place where you think she's comfortable. Like you make friends with people where they're comfortable. That's where you establish the relationship first. You know, that's where you meet over, you know, if you both like coffee, you meet with coffee first. You know, you find a point of familiarity and comfort in that sense. So you go to the point that looks comfortable first. And that's why, you know, I remember most people in my practice didn't know that I was a physio, but if they did, they would expect me to go and work on the bit that was painful, because that's what physios do, which is fine. I mean, it's not anything against, that's what we're trained to do as physios. And they would sort of get a little bit antsy, like, why are you touching me there when you know I've told you that it's my lower back? Whereas people who came to me knowing I was a Feldenkrais practitioner, not knowing about my past history, weren't fussed by that, because they know that that's what Feldenkrais is about. We're systems thinking, and why would we tackle somebody at their most difficult point straight away? Why would we do that? You know, it's like, you know, Kevin comes in and I say, Kevin, you know, let's say you're really sensitive about being tall and we've never met before, and I say, you know, tackle you right straight away about your tallness, something. You know what I mean? You just don't do that. We don't do it socially. We don't go for the jugular straight away. So you go somewhere where there's this kind of equipoise thing, all right? Yeah. That's a very good question, because I didn't actually join the dots. Thank you, Linda. You know, when I looked at Nina and I made a little prediction about what she knows the most about, like what might move first or the most, and I thought her pelvis. So I put my hand there. So that's why I did that little prediction game. Now, I could be wrong. And you don't pin all your, you know, you don't get really, fixated that you're right or wrong, because often you'll be wrong. But it's not wrong, it's just soft wrong, you know, there's a soft, yeah. Yeah, often we will get people to move first. Yeah, I would have still put my hand on her pelvis first, just because it just seems to me the way she aligns herself, and when I look at kind of what's lively and what's not lively now, and in a way, kind of what's going to move more or not, what's more available to her. In a way, what I'm entering into is her self-image, which we'll talk a lot more about. Again, it's one of those things. Yeah. So that's what I want you to do. That's what I'm asking you to do. You're going to find a person to work with. You're going to look at their alignment in that sort of their alignment ready for something. So, you know, Feldenkrais was not about good posture. You know the thing. He was about acture. Am I organized? Am I aligned in a way that's good for the function I'm about to do? So there's no such thing as the perfect posture. There's what we're interested in is, am I organized, ready to do what I'm going to do? So in this instance, I know the function is rolling. So I want Nina to mechanically be as free as possible to roll. There is that level of, we want that sort of, the vague possibility for instability, so she doesn't have to roll in it. Now, Nina made it easy for me. The only thing that I adjusted was bringing her head in line with her spine. If she had done what a lot of my new clients do, they come in, they lie on their side and they lie like this. Now, they're really unstable. You know, getting back to Helen's point about why we choose side lie, because in order to not roll, she has to work really hard. So I go for the compromise. So she did that for me already. She took her knees up. And if she'd taken them up too far, then rolling becomes difficult too, because she's too stable. So it's the Goldilocks just right thing, which she did spontaneously. So I didn't fuss with that. She had her left knee a little bit behind her right. I didn't fuss with that. I'm not too fussed about that. It does show me, it's another thing that I saw that would make me think she's more organized to go backwards than forwards, right? That was another clue that I saw implicitly. I didn't say explicitly. What else could she have done? She could have had this arm more in front of the other, which means she's more like this. You know, there could have been all sorts of things that I could have adjusted. She spontaneously went into a pretty kind of equipoisey position, you know, a neutral position. It was only the head. So the person that you're looking at might need adjustments or suggestions, let's say, elsewhere. And, you know, don't feel bad about this. I remember it was like year 3 in my training of 4 years. and how many side lying lessons had we done? Hundreds. And our ED came up to me and he said, I have to ask, do you really think that's your side? Yeah, it's not perhaps the most polite way of saying it. You know who I'm talking about. Because what I thought was my side wasn't really my side. I was completely unaware. And I'm still relatively flexible. Back then I was super flexible. I didn't, I could kind of move out of any position. So it wasn't such a big deal, but actually it was a big deal because I didn't know what lying on my side really was. I think I was very forward. I don't know, it's a long time ago. Anyway, it took him 3 years to come up and tell me, which is fine. Let's say we won't let you go quite that long. And we won't say it like that. Do you really think that's your side? He didn't say that. That's how I heard it. Jackal ears. Anyway, is that clear? All right. So you can see how our facilitating method comes along. Is that and again, I'm bringing our teaching thinking to the foreground so you understand what we're doing and why. Last week, it wasn't anything goes, but it was a pretty loose approximation, all right, of going for the ride. Now we're doing it again. I'm getting more precise in what going along for the ride might mean and how I look at the whole system. Okay, so this is the process for the next 3 years, is that we just keep layering and layering until your ears bleed, so that you build up this repertoire of skills and knowledge. So if you're frustrated that we're going too fast or too slow, you can tell us that this is the process. Okay, I bubbled that up to the surface, bubble that back down to the surface. Be curious about this person. Can I sit here and look at Nina and go, wow, that's really interesting. That. It's terrible language. Language is a virus. Do you have something to say, Jen? No?
Just going to hope that you're at the point of summarising the step 1, 2, 3.
Oh, good. Very good. I can do that. And I'll add another step, which you reminded me of because I looked at you and that's what I thought you were going to say. So the person lies down. You see how they lie spontaneously. You've got an intention in mind around organising. So they don't know what you're going to do with them. Actually, they do, but let's pretend they don't. You will make some suggestions so that they're moving towards the function that you're after. So that might, in any of those things that I've mentioned, head, eyes. Then you'll have another look and you'll see, you have a little game and you'll try and predict, are they more organised to go forwards or are they more organised to go back? First question. Second question, what parts of them are likely to move first, almost, or something like that? So they're more present for rolling. So in Nina's case, that was the pelvis. And then I'm going to choose that part. I'm going to go along for the ride. And then I'm going to choose another part, and another part, and another part. And then the final thing, which Jenny reminded me last week, and I didn't allude to, see that little box on the whiteboard? So remember we talked about this idea of giving feedback. So afterwards, Nina's going to sit up and we're going to discuss it. And I'm going to ask her for feedback about my touch, about my capacity to go along for the ride. And Nina is going to think about how, so the first point is I'm asking for feedback. She's not imposing on me. I'm ready. I have indicated that I'm receptive for feedback. Now, what I might actually do is ask for feedback about specific things. So to make it easy for her, so I might say, well, how was my touch, here versus here? I felt the first time I did it, which is actually what Nina and I did without words, is that the way I was organised the first time I was kind of, I wasn't free to keep moving. So she felt like she had to stop. So how can we have a conversation about that in words? How can she say that? She give me the feedback. Oh, yeah, it was interesting. When you had your hand lower down in the first couple of times, I got to a certain point and I felt like it wasn't easy for either of us to go any further, let's say. And then when you moved your hand further, onto here or whatever she felt, that then it was smoother for both of us, that kind of thing. So we can ask for specific feedback. And it's done in this way with these 3 questions. Before the person gives the feedback, ask yourself quietly, the feedback, is it wise, is it kind, and is it necessary? Now, if the person asks for it, then they've given you the necessary. Then it's up to you, how do I frame the feedback in a way that's both wise and kind? Because you're now responsible for, you're sharing the responsibility for their learning. And it's very much a do unto others as you would have done unto you. Is that the way? Yeah, something like that. You could, during, if you want to, if the person asks for it. Yeah, but let's say the person who's going along for the ride in that sense will ask for it. Now, if the person lying down is in extreme distress, find a way.
Then it's necessary.
Then it's necessary from your point of view. I would like to think that doesn't happen. So be judicious about that. Yeah. All right, is that clear? Observing, adjusting, suggesting, adjusting, guessing, and playing the game. And I'm using that word very, very specifically. It's a game. The prediction is a game. You don't know. So any illusions that you're an expert, get rid of them. You know, that's when I keep saying we as Feldenkrais practitioners stay humble. As soon as you start feeling like an expert and you know what's going to happen, let me just say the Feldenkrais gods will put a little tripwire and you'll fall flat on your face. Am I right, Jenny? Yeah, because the person will be contrary and they'll do the damned opposite. You can get cross with them or you can just make it a game and it doesn't matter. Okay? Any